welcome to the Startup Grind.
Mark is he's most recently known, and probably how most of you guys know him, as the chairman of the Hillsborough County Commissioners, right? And I had to wait till he wasn't a commissioner anymore because we don't have politicians talk here. So he's no longer, he's a recovering politician now. That's his new host, right?
My name is Mark.
But Mark's done a lot of stuff in the community, right? And a lot of you kind of know that. So he's on the chairman of the Tampa Bay Water, right, where he served as a director. He was on the Regional Transit Authority here, served on the commission, right? He was the vice chairman of HART, right? Is that correct? For a period of time? Something like that? Does that sound really? A part of the Metro Planning Organization and the task force there. And he also, previous to that, right, he served 8 years as an officer in the Navy, right? You ran for Congress as well, and a lot. And he has a couple of degrees, right, from different universities in Florida. So please give a warm round of applause to Mark Sharpe, and thank you for being here tonight.
These are big chairs. I was hoping for like something smaller.
Really small.
Yeah,
We can see if we can get you a small one from the other room, but
Yeah, I like it.
It's very comfy. Don't go to sleep on me though, okay? Mark's gonna leave and drive to Nebraska tomorrow, so he's got a long drive ahead of him. So I want to start out talking a little bit about just you, right? Mark Sharpe is a person. So you're a Tampa native.
Yes, born at MacDill Air Force Base.
And so talk a little bit about that. Like, what kind of kid were you growing up? Were you like a good kid, or were you mischievous?
I was a good kid. I was raised in a military family. My dad was incredibly strict. I said sir up until, actually, I think after graduating from college. I was sirring everyone, ma'aming everyone. I was very outgoing, played lots of sports, and curious about everything.
So your dad was in
the Air Force.
The Air Force. So how did you decide to go into the Navy?
Honestly, it was like a lark. I was in college trying to get into the Central Intelligence Agency. My minor was Russian. I spoke Russian. I didn't speak. I took Russian and Russian literature, Russian language. My degree was in multinational business, and the folks that I were talking to said, if you really are interested in this type of work, you should go to the military and get into military intelligence first. And so I just picked up the phone. I was getting ready to graduate and called, and the Navy folks answered, and I said, I can be down there tomorrow to talk with you. And I drove down, and literally I went to the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, didn't check out the Marines, and the Navy had the program which I liked. I applied and got in. I was an intel officer for 8 years.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I actually had no idea you spoke Russian until I was doing
research.
research.
Я говорю по-русски, меня зовут Марк Шарп, я живу в Tampa. That's about it.
So that's okay. It's good. It's good to have some extra skills. It's like any other foreign languages you speak that I'm unaware of.
No, that's it.
Oh, all right, just checking. No Spanish?
No, not even. I didn't take. I was, I wanted to take what everyone else wasn't taking, so I went after Russian.
You picked a hard language.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. So I know that you're a reader, right? I mean, we kind of know each other, so I know that you read all the time.
Yeah.
What are your favorite kind of books to read?
I'm almost predictably nonfiction. I like to read big mammoth books about people who want to strike out to change the world to do great things. I like exploration books though as well. So I will read books about, again, explorers, but I'll also read about people who've taken on large, huge tasks. I'm fascinated by that. So since I know I can't do all these things, I can learn and kind of experience it through reading. And so I get it out of my reading.
So is there a book that you think that everybody, when we're talking about the entrepreneurial community, right? Out of the books that you've read, is there a book you think everybody should read?
Well, there are probably, I would say there are two books that influenced and shaped me, Atlas Shrugged and Ran, and not all for the reasons you would think, because I found myself on both sides of her. She's an extreme libertarian, and I was fascinated by John Galt, who was John Galt, and this effort, I saw someone sitting by the pool. I was in Denver, Colorado, going through Intel school. I was walking down to the pool, and there was this gorgeous lady, I was unmarried at the time, sitting there on her, reading this big, thick book. And it's interesting, that's how I am. I was paying attention to the book, not her. And I walked up and I said, "What are you reading?" And she said, "I'm reading," it was Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. And I got up and I went to Tattered Covers, which is downtown. If anybody knows where Denver is, Tattered Covers. I went to Tattered Cover, found the book, came back, and she was not impressed at all that I went and got the book and came back to read it. But I read the book. It was awesome. And I think The Power Broker as well, which Robert Caro, to me, is just, he's an awesome writer. And again, about, Robert Moses and the man who made New York.
Cool. Okay. So what are your hobbies like? I mean, I know you run, but do you actually do anything besides read books and run?
My wife will say that I'm pretty boring. I don't, in the sense that I just don't have a lot of hobbies. I like to hike. Okay. I like to run. And I like to read, and I like to work. Yeah. I get stuff everywhere. I get strands everywhere. But I can go out and dig and hunt. But I predominantly, I love what I do.
Okay. So let's get a little bit more serious then. So we'll kind of talk about like TIA, right? So you had your last hurrah, right, as the chairman of the commissioners, right? Mm-hmm. Got a building dedicated in your name, the new ECC building, right, which is great. Actually, I was there earlier today.
Hopefully, did they let you in?
They did. There really was no police person.
Was it crowded, full of people?
There were a few people there. There were some startup people there.
Oh, good,
yeah.
Good, and it's working.
So it was good, and it's just open. Don't get too worked up over that. No. It just opened, so it's okay. It was good. So you stepped into this new role as the executive director of the Tampa Innovation Alliance, but I was thinking about you're so passionate about transportation, right? It would have been easier for you to go be a transportation lobbyist, make a lot more money, right? And what made you decide that instead of going down that route, right, that you were going to go do this?
Well, first they asked me, so I got a phone call, and I was looking a year out of being as a commissioner, thinking, what am I going to do? And what do I want to do? And like everything I've done in life, it has to be something I love. And I've been lucky because while the things I love don't make a lot of money, again, military, and then after the military, I got involved in politics, lost consecutively 3 times running for Congress, taught.
You just live in the wrong district, dude.
I was wrong district. But I was passionate about public education, so I'm going to go, at the time, wasn't married, so I started teaching. Because I love being in the classroom, I enjoy the engagement, and I like middle school kids, which is a rough age, but it was a blast. And then I started fundraising for them, so I enjoyed it. And I reached that point where I'm like, okay, I just can't keep doing this. I was looking at options when the commission seat opened up. And so I decided, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to win. I came close enough with the congressional seat, but this one I'm going to win. And when I won, it was finding what I wanted to do. So, economic development, job creation, very important to me. It's all tied to transportation. So in my typical fashion, I want to do this and achieve this, but in order to get there, we need certain things, and I became fixated on the transportation component. We can't get there if we don't fix this. So I just can't ask someone else to do this because they're not going to do it. I've got to do it, and it became something I focused on. But while I was doing all those things, I recognized that university area has so much potential, but it's a place where when I would talk to the old county staff, not the new county staff, about that area, they would say, well, it's the city's problem. It's not, they would say like a problem. That's the city's issue. That's not our issue. And it's way up there. And no one wanted to look at, and I'm like, well, if you look up there at that map, you see a university, you see a VA hospital, one of 5 polytrauma centers, you see Busch Gardens, which brings in millions of people. You've got Moffitt Cancer. At the time, you have University Community Hospital, where my kids were all born. Wow, and so much more. Why is this area not like the economic dynamo for the region that everyone recognizes? And why, when we do call it out, we call it out as Suitcase City? So I asked Eric, and Eric Larson is here, and he was has been working with me even prior to the commission work when we were both at Cambridge. But I said, let's get a big satellite imagery of that area and let's put it on our wall. And every day I'm going to come in and look at it, and we're going to do something about this. We're going to change it. And a year out of leaving office, I realized I had not been successful. And I was kind of depressed, thinking, that was the one thing I committed myself to really doing, and we didn't even come close. And I'm like, oh, well, but that's something I really care about. And, I think, I believe in, I'm a Calvinist in some way. I believe in that we're destined to do certain things. The call came, Mark, we want you to do this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would do it for free. If I didn't have kids and a family and a mortgage and car
Stephanie
bills.
probably wouldn't go for that.
No, yeah, well, she would not go for that at all. But I mean, I personally, I'd live in a pup tent and eat sardines every day and be thrilled if I could do something that I really want to do. And that's something I want to do.
Okay, so what is it? Like, I read the thing, right? So is it a marketing organization? Is it another cheerleading organization? Because we got a lot of those, okay? Or is it more than that? And if it's more than that, what is it?
Well, we haven't completely defined what it is.
Okay, so give me a high-level view.
But I can say in the elevator speech what the organization is. Well, first, like West Shore, its purpose is to organize like the West Shore Alliance. West Shore, which is the second largest commercial district in the southeast United States, knew they needed a large DRI and a master plan, but they had no way of getting there. They organized, got members, accomplished it. The county turned to the university area and said, we may invest money in this area, but we don't know who to talk to. We don't know what your priorities are. We have no idea what it is you want to do or achieve. Come up with a set of priorities. And so from that, the county, the group, the major stakeholders said, we should organize. And we should at least be able to tell people, like Ron Rotella can do over at the West Shore side, here are our top 5 things that we want to do and that we want funded. And then we'll make sure that those things are embedded in every single plan that exists in the state of Florida. And so part of my job is to get ourselves organized, grow the organization from 4 to a larger number, and reduce that sound in the university area, less crime.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of like how you're going to accomplish that. So when you and I met, right, you probably remember that meeting.
Yes.
So was it tougher dealing with me in our first meeting at bar camp or going through OCS?
Oh, God. Listen, I've told someone, why do I get up every morning at 5 o'clock like an alarm clock? Actually, it's 4:50. I wake up no matter. I could have gone to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm up at that time because of OCS. Drill instructors coming into your room with trash cans banging and screaming and hollering right at 5 o'clock. And so I would always wake up 10 minutes before 5. My body would wake me up. I would be prepared. So when it happened, I was ready to go. That was tough. Meeting you and trying to tell you what it was I wanted to do and all the things I thought, that was tougher. Joy, you were tougher. So I would say you were a lot tougher than OCS and any Marine drill instructor.
So you want to explain to them how we met? Because I want to talk a little bit about what you've learned from the entrepreneur community. So you explain how we met?
Well, I was invited to come speak at bar camp, and I was on a panel with a bunch of other people, all government types.
Yep.
And and the night before, I'd read Brad Feld's Startup Communities, where it said the people you don't want talking about how to do this are the government types. And I'm like, oh God, we're just breaking the rules. And I'm walking into this meeting, and I'm going to be saying everything I shouldn't say. And so I'm speaking, and I'm trying to be humble and recognizing my limitations, but I'm still messing up, and I'm looking at Joy, and Joy's in the back of the room. And everything I say that I think makes sense, she's shaking her head that way. She's going no. So I, in my natural way, I'm drawn to those type of people. I don't want to be around the people who are doing this. I want that one person's going no. And so I want to know, because I want to know why. So I'm like, all right, I'm wrong. I'm not surprised, but I know. So tell me why. And she didn't hold back. She was like a drill instructor. You're an idiot.
I did not say you were an idiot. I just said you were wrong. I didn't call you an idiot. So it's like, but to that point, right? So like we talked a lot about like what the entrepreneurial community needed, particularly the tech community and those kind of things, right? and sort of the misperceptions in our community of what that actually is, because there's a big disconnect between what a big tech company wants and what a startup needs and wants. Right. You're both in technology, but the needs are dramatically different. So I think you've come a long way since then. Like you've like really come around from kind of where you started. And you spent a lot of time, I think, talking to people in the tech community, talking to other entrepreneurs, even the ones outside the tech community, trying to understand, what's that. So how are you going to leverage what you've learned, right, through 10 years as a commissioner, right?
Right.
In dealing with crazy psycho people like us, who are obstinate and opinionated, and we basically say whatever we think and have a great disdain for government, right? So all those things. But I think you've learned a lot in engaging with the different people in the startup community. How are you going to apply that to what you're going to do out in the USF area? Because, STEM and STEAM are going to be a big part of making that work.
Well, it's again, we're so young into what we're trying to do, although I recognize that we have established anchored institutions which have been around for a long time, and quite frankly have a very different perspective than the startup community.
Yes.
So this, in many ways, is very similar to what I went through at the county, where I got in, I wanted to make Tampa Bay, I mean, not personally make it, but I thought, what a great objective, Tampa Bay rivals some of the greatest cities in America when it comes to attracting high-wage companies and creating high-wage jobs. Let's get the largest pharmaceutical companies to come here. Let's get the largest tech companies to come here. And let's go after research. At the time when I was elected in 2004, Scripps was going to Palm Beach, and that was really where I dived in. I remember very well calling Al Austin at the time and saying, Al, Scripps is going to Palm Beach. Can we get the governor to redirect them to Tampa? And he's like laughing at me. Mark, you're crazy. Don't call the governor. Scripps is not going to come to Tampa. And that was what started me, because I'm like, well, why aren't they going to come to Tampa? And I got involved in organizations that were responsible for recruiting research institutions like that. And I learned about, well, who we are, what we have, what they do, very different than the tech startup community. And so I began with research, and we started with large companies, and I realized that's boring. Not that what they do is boring, but I'm not a good golfer, and I don't really, going out to dinner with a 65-year-old CEO really doesn't, of a large corporate company doesn't interest me. But I'm fascinated by these young folks who are starting tech companies that are just completely disrupting the entire, business community and global commerce world. I want to know these people. I want them to come here because they're the ones making the change. And that took a while to make that turn and understand it. And so what we're going to do in the university is try to attract, obviously, research, large companies, but as well have a community where the tech entrepreneur is welcomed and wants to be. A place where we're not going to try to lure you there. You're going to want to be there because there's so much happening that you would crawl over crushed glass to get there and put your business or your startup there.
Remember that, Matt. But I'm not opposed to like the big companies, because what I think the big companies do, if you bring in the big research entities and stuff, it's not bad, even from a startup perspective, because what happens is people go in there, and I know because I've lived through this, and I've had startups that have been acquired, and you get really frustrated because you have this idea, you find this niche, or there's a need, and you have an idea, the company won't engage on that idea, so then you leave and you go start something. So to me, that's beneficial, right? It's a part of the ecosystem overall. So there's nothing wrong with that. So you've got, out in your group, right, there's 4 primary stakeholders right now, right, which are Mosey, USF, Moffitt, and Busch Gardens, correct?
Florida Hospital.
And Florida Hospital.
Mosey just joined today. They're on our board. But the major anchor institutions were, at the time, it was University Community Hospital.
Okay.
Bought by Florida Hospital. Busch Gardens, Moffitt Cancer, and of course, University of South Florida.
So as you go forward with them, right, even those organizations probably have some different priorities from each other, would be logical, right? Because normally at this point in time, we kind of talk about founders, right? So they were the founding members of the organization, right? Brought you in to be the executive director. What are their roles going to be, and how are they going to influence what the organization does?
Well, it's interesting because when they brought me in, they said, look, we want this place to be an area where people want to live, work, play. It's a term everyone's using for all the innovation.
Good
districts
marketing
and
term.
such. We drive here, we work here, and then we leave as fast as we can. Kind of like what the downtown used to be, when you would go downtown if you did, and you'd leave because there was nothing to do, no place to go, and you was a good chance you were going to get stopped by somebody asking for money. And so the university area had that problem, but even greater. So it's like, okay, we want this place to be a place where you want to be. And that's really what they started with. They've been very engaged, but as like I learned from, the CEO of Busch Gardens, man, if a ride's not working, that's his problem. He's focusing on, how do I make Falcon's Fury work? How do I get people into my park? And all the myriad of issues you deal with, when you're running Busch Gardens. The same for the president of the USF. The same for Moffitt. So their challenge, but their opportunity is they've been focusing inward. Now they're saying we want to work together, create a better environment. If nothing else, collaborate more, make sure that our master plans, and they all have master plans, overlap, and bring all that energy together in a way that I think would really make that place a very different place.
Okay. So you get those guys engaged, but in order to make this successful, right, there's a lot of small businesses. I mean, the bulk of what makes up that area out there are small businesses.
Right.
How do you get those people engaged, and how do you kind of get everybody moving towards the same goal?
Well, not easy. I mean,
it's not easy, because if it were easy, they would have hired
they would
somebody.
have already done it.
Right.
But in some ways it is easy. It's why I like this job, because it's like, okay, I can walk up to someone and say, as I met like Farouk, who's part of the, Farouk was the assistant manager for the Dunkin' Donuts right there on Fountain. And I'm like, okay, we want to make this corridor look nicer so that when people are driving to go to the university or Mosey, they will stop at your store and buy something. And he says, that's awesome. So in some ways, it's an easy sell, because it's like, okay, right now, everybody who visits Busch Gardens, the average pre-gate expenditure prior to getting to Busch Gardens is $2.98. That's not even like a pack of gum, I don't think. So, I don't want to sound like George Bush 41, ignorant of how much bread costs, but I mean, okay, $2.98 is not a lot of money. So my message to the business community is, look, I can't promise you that your concerns and the university's concerns are going to be in alignment exactly, but we want to make this, we want a presence. So like when you arrive at Tampa International Airport and you see the big sign and it says, welcome to TIA, and you go into the airport and man, you're there. I mean, what Joe Lupano has done at that airport, where the little things that we would make suggestions and they would go, well, it's baggage claim. Would anyone want to see a video or care about any information at baggage claim? You're getting bags. Joe came in and said, you're going to care. When you're waiting there, you're going to see something about Tampa. It pops. There's a Starbucks by the Southwest, baggage claim section. Those little things have made a big difference. The Alliance is kind of like, well, we got these major anchor institutions. What does it matter what it looks like when you get off the interstate? Well, it matters to me when I'm taking my kids to the university for the first time, and the first thing I see when I get off Fowler is world's largest flea market. I don't want to see that. I want to see something that tells me I'm in a place where there's learning going on, or there's business, or when you're going to Busch Gardens, and the first thing you see when you get off Busch as you're heading east towards Busch Gardens is a derelict hotel that's just sitting there. So now, I'm not saying we can buy those things or change it, but I'm telling you what we're going to do is when you do come, my sense is when you're coming from 75 or 275 and you're heading towards major anchor institutions, you're going to know you're in a place that's special. And when you drive by a business, you're going to see something that tells you, hey, they're part of this Alliance thing or whatever they're calling themselves. It's safe to stop. I'm not going to wait till I get there to go to the restroom. We're going to stop here now and maybe, we'll buy something. And when I leave, I'm not going to rush out as fast as I can to get back home. Maybe we'll stay and have dinner. That's what we got to do. And so part of my job is not just to attract tech companies, it's to get a change of attitude amongst all the businesses so that we're all working collectively. So this place has a look and a feel that tells me, you know what, I've arrived, this is where I want to be, and I'll spend some money.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about failure and challenges, right? So in our town, my opinion, this is my opinion, so anybody can choose to disagree with me, we have a real problem with talking about failure. We want to put lipstick on a lot of pigs, right? We look at things and we view failure as being somehow or another it's monumental and it's just like devastating, we can't deal with it. If you look at other communities, right, particularly in the tech community, right, failure is embraced. Failure is normal, right? We look at we go like, failure is good. You learned something when you failed. What is bad and what's embarrassing and humiliating is if you don't pick yourself up and move on, or if you continue to make the same stupid mistake over and over again, right? But people look at it like, oh, you had 5 startups that failed? Okay, cool, that's great. Oh, your new one's doing well? That's awesome. So in looking at that, right, you've kind of been the odd man out a few times during at least through the course of the last decade, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to things like focusing on entrepreneurship, on transportation and technology. I mean, like the Tea Party guys hate you because you think that maybe there should be a train somewhere in the state.
Right.
Right. And, and we all know that cars are not going away, but somehow or another, the fact that somebody mentions a train freaks people out. So, I mean, I think you've had your share of challenges. How are you going to apply like the things that you've learned? Because you need to rally a lot of support to make this work, right? So how are you going to kind of embrace those things and step outside your comfort zone? It's hard because you've been a politician for a long time, right? And you're used to talking in sound bites and trying to make everybody happy. There's no way in this new role you're going to make everybody happy.
Oh, no. But that's why I'm perfect for this job, because I know walking in. And I mean, I'll be straight with the businesses I'm talking with. I mean, you might not get what you want, but what you're going to get is a lot better than what you got now. I mean, I just am a believer in the struggle. I like the fight. I hate to lose. I despise losing, but I'm not afraid of losing. And so being afraid of losing has never stopped me from trying. I mean, I quit my career in the Navy. I mean, some people were suggesting, there was a scandal in my background. When I was running, for Congress, they were trying to suggest that, well, he left for a reason. I left because I wanted to be in Congress. I'd served 8 years active duty, and I thought, you know what? I'm frustrated with what I'm seeing going on. I was serving at the Pentagon, not real happy. Thought we were looking at things the wrong way, and I knew there was no way as a military man or woman I was going to get to change anything, but I could change it running, and perhaps, from Washington. And so, but I knew the odds were like stacked against me. I mean, everyone in the planet told me, you're crazy, you're nuts, you're going to lose. The girl I was dating, her father at the time, was just like, oh my God, what on earth? Who are you dating? This guy's, I just got a lot of negative reaction. But it didn't stop me, and we came within a couple points of beating them. And so I gained from that. I walked away, I lost, but I'm like, daggone it, you know what? At least I can come close. I mean, I win. And so, I think that what I look at in that university area are a lot of people who, quite frankly, have been through a heck of a lot worse than I've been through. And those people might feel like, there's no hope. And if anything else, my message to them is going to be, we're compadres, because most of my life has been full of the not being successful, being passed over for chair, not winning the election I wanted to win, whatever it might be, but always looking at that and thinking, how am I going to pivot? How am I going to turn that loss into a success? And so what I'm going to say to my friends there is, look, we're all together in this. And I believe in you enough to take this job. You got to believe in yourself enough to try, and we work together, and no guarantees, but, okay. So I think that I'll be able to help communicate.
So it's interesting. So it's called the Tampa Innovation Alliance, right? And
I don't know how I got that name. I have no idea how they got that.
Well, but innovation's like this big overused term, right? And you can't force innovation, right? And just saying it doesn't make it so.
Right.
Right? On the counter of that, right, I would say that USF does a great job as a research institution, right? I mean, from a university standpoint, they do a lot of research.
One of the 8th largest research institution in the world.
But just having patents doesn't mean that anybody actually implements the patents and makes real products.
Right.
So what do you think needs to happen to kind of help that? So you've got Moffitt there, another research facility, right? But yet now we're going to have the medical school moving, a portion at least, moving downtown. How do you counter that, and how do you kind of get people on board to kind of help circle the wagons? Because there's a lot of positive things. It's about kind of finding the commonality and figuring out how to get momentum moving in the right direction. So how are you going to engage, right, your stakeholders and the community at large to make that work?
Well, I think, because there are a lot of moving pieces and parts, my goal will be to do really what is contrary to my nature, which is rather than trying to do 1,000 things, because I do have that tendency, I wanted, on my vacation, I will go and sit down and write the 100 things we need to do to make ourselves this or that, and then try to do 100 things, and maybe not do any of them. So what we're going to focus on are a few things, and do them well, which I think will move the needle in the university area. There's already some good things happening. The new mall owner is very committed to making the university mall a part of the university area, where before the mall was kind of like its own little place, and malls themselves are dying anyway in some ways. And that mall has a bad reputation. This new mall owner wants to be part of changing the way it looks and the way it feels and the way it works. Mosey's entering into a relationship with the University of South Florida that will change the relationship between those two. We're going to focus on a few major key things that we think we can do. We're going to, we've talked about, do we need another accelerator, an incubator, some variation of something in that university area that could help the startup community. I don't know where we'll go. We do have folks like Guy Hagan from Tucker Hall that is doing an inventory of what is there now to help us over the next few months understand what we have and what's needed. The county's doing a very expensive study with Battelle we did it in 2009, now we're updating it. It will be done sometime in the summer that will tell us the direction that we should perhaps go in focusing on the life sciences. So we'll have some roadmaps and help. We're going to focus on those things which the Alliance members, the anchors, the county, which is going to be very involved, if for no other reason than that we sit in the county and they have taken an active interest in seeing that area be more productive. We're going to try to focus on a few good things, do well, and then recognize as well that some things will just happen on their own. We'll get out of the way.
Well, organic, I think, is good. So it's interesting. Like we've lost a lot of really great companies here that started here and just didn't stay.
Right.
Like Wikipedia, like Wufoo, right? Tourist. It sounds like your goal is to kind of create something that will make those people want to stay.
Yeah.
Right? How will you kind of change the mindset, right? Because and there's competing areas, right? So, and I'm not trying to kind of like poo-poo it, because I think there's a different area out there, but now it seems like all the focus, right, is on downtown, and there's been a lot of shakeups, right? So a lot of the leadership overall in our community has changed, right? There's change at Mosey, right? Because like Witt's going to step down. There's a change at the partnership. There's some other changes kind of going on at USF. There's some new stuff going on at UT. So there's a lot of things, you taking on a new role, new leadership roles. How do you kind of get past all that, the noise, right, that's going on there, and kind of figure out how to move that forward? And I mean, STEAM has to be a part of anything that's going to be innovation related in some form, right? It doesn't have to be the textbook case. It doesn't have to look like Denver or Silicon Valley or somewhere else. It should look like what's right for Tampa, but those areas have to be a part of it.
And the governor's committed to STEAM or STEM, and we're still debating whether it's STEM or STEAM, and I think we add the A because the arts are very important. But I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's it. That's my. So I'm asking, how do you help like pull all those pieces together and get past the noise?
Well, I think, but you know what? Here's what you do when you're weak, and you need assistance. I believe in using the gravitational pull of another larger body to help pull you, and you use, my favorite movie, Apollo 13, love it. I showed it, my middle school kids all the time. I love it, And here's a problem. Here's a box of, toothbrushes and whatever else they got. Fix that problem. And they take all that stuff and they solve the problem. I love movies like that. But they also told you that part of the way they solved the problem was by using the gravity. The moon's gravity. They looped around the moon and came whipping back towards Earth. I look at the downtown and think that's our gravity. That's going to pull us. Because while the downtown is awesome, and what Mr. Vinnick is doing is incredible. It's entertainment. You know, it's you know, you got the hockey, you've got the channel side, you've got a big port, which is really important, obviously, one of the largest ports in the state of Florida. You've got the aquarium sitting there, 2 seats of government, but still, where are the anchor institutions really? When you think about what a Moffitt brings, a VA brings, one of 5 polytrauma centers in the United States, when you think about what Florida Hospital, quite frankly, my gosh, those guys are, I mean, they're spending over $1 billion in the Orlando area with their medical city. They're putting over $500 million into the University Community Hospital, which they purchased in Tampa, and also the Carewood Hospital. They're not just doing that for nothing. Florida Hospital has got big goals as well. So that area is going to be an engine. But as I tell my Brandon friends when I would go to the West Coast and try to lure someone here, I don't go to the West Coast and say, you know, your business really should come to Brandon. Or, you know, Why Mama is perfect for you. Or, you know, or Town and Country. Or, they, what? But if you say Tampa, well, they know Tampa. So I have to say, look, I have to use the words Tampa. They hate it when you go east part of the county. Don't use those, you know, you're Hillsborough County. You know, just sell Hillsborough County. All right, that's fine, but people know Tampa. So why be stupid? You know what? Let's promote, let's use Tampa as a great lure, because when they come here, they're going to go, wow, this is great, but there's not enough room for a manufacturing facility in downtown Tampa, but I can put it in Brandon. So they'll be in Tampa, but they put it in Brandon. So the way I see it, as Vinnick takes this downtown and turns it around in a way that has never been turned, ever, in the history of Tampa Bay, people are going to know about it. We're going to go out and we're going to say, you want to come to Tampa Bay. And I'm hoping that we're going to bring, as they look at Tampa Bay and they see this powerful university and all that's around it, they're going to go, but whoa, we got to have at least an element of us there. That's where we want to be. And I will be working on a transit link, I hope fixed of some sort, that will connect. And there's a rail line, I don't know if it's one of your questions, between downtown Tampa that goes all the way, parallels 275 kind of in a weird sort of way, and then comes up Fowler and then heads straight towards Mosey. So there's a rail line, underutilized. We could use it. I'm convinced that could be a DMU line of some sort that would connect the Busch Gardens, Moffitt, VA, USF, Peppenhart, Bird Alzheimer's, health destination with our downtown. And I think medical tourism would be a fabulous draw, and you could pull people in and go, you want to go here, because when you go, your family, when you're getting your prostate seed implant, everybody else can go over to, Busch Gardens and ride the, whatever. Why not? Everybody will or you can come here and we'll take you down and say, we'll whisk you, effortlessly, or maybe in a rail line that looks a lot like something that would come out of the Congo. It'll be a thematic like the Busch Gardens rail and take you right downtown.
The Congo thing might be a little out there, but okay. I do find it interesting that
Jeff. A yellow taxi. I don't want me to say. I love taxis.
Okay, so we're going to talk Uber and Lyft. Let's leave that off the table for tonight.
Please.
But I mean, I do think what Vinnick's doing is great. It's very interesting that a person who doesn't even live here is the person doing that.
And he loved it so much.
Right. So I mean, because Jeff Vinnick lives in Sarasota, so it's pretty interesting, And he's building a mega mansion down there as well. He bought a couple of pieces of property, moving from his existing mansion to a mega mansion that he's building. But it's interesting. You brought up Tampa Bay. So obviously this is the Tampa Innovation Alliance, and it covers an area that kind of spans that the area from USF to Busch Gardens and kind of over in that kind of underutilized area.
It's a defined area.
Yep. But I think one of the problems we have in a community as a whole is everybody's pushing and pulling for their own little piece of the pie, right? Versus looking at, it's like, you're going to get yours, right? If you've got the right thing, you'll get your piece, but you have to look at how you incorporate other organizations throughout the entire region. Because Tampa Bay, what I find odd is people here look at it, it's like, oh, it's Tampa, it's Pinellas, it's this, it's that. It's like, okay, guys, Silicon Valley, what is considered Silicon Valley, is larger than the Tampa Bay Partnership.
Exactly.
And they got some bridges out there too, in case anybody is, doesn't know that, right? So there's bridges out there.
Yeah.
So, and we get like all hung up because like somebody's going to cross a bridge and nobody thinks anything about it out there.
No.
So I think kind of changing that mindset and looking at like, USF, looking at how they might be able to partner with other universities and the students kind of coming out of those, sends a completely different message. So as you start moving through this, right, you got your anchor guys that are on board. You're going to go like talk to the small businesses, try to get them to move on board with that. How do you manage getting feedback? Because one of the things you need, right, you talked about pivoting. So you've used some interesting startup terms, kind of while we're talking today, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, it's kind of you and some interns and Eric, right?
Me and Eric, sitting in a tree.
How do you get feedback? Like, you're going to get some feedback in a minute because we're going to turn it over in about 5 minutes. I'm going to ask a few more questions, and we like the audience to ask questions. But how do you take input from your customer, right, which are all those people that are in the community and those kind of things, and be able to internalize that, right? Because it's hard with only like a couple of people.
Yeah, but
what's the best way for them to communicate with you? The
same way when I was a commissioner. And look, most emails to me as a commissioner started with "you idiot," and then it went downhill. I mean, it was like you are the dumbest person. I would show these to my wife. She's like, "Why do you do this?" I mean, and I enjoyed it. I would fire right back. I'm like, if you're willing to send me an email like that, I'm going to respond. And I wouldn't respond derogatory. I tried not to, but I loved responding, and I love social media, and I like to engage. I got counseled by a lot of people. The mayor, Mayor Oreo, thought that I was way too. I mean, it was a bit true because we would be having meetings, and I would be the one responding to a Twitter, feed or Facebook during the transit referendum. She was like, "Well, don't worry, Mark, because we've got this really," and I love Mary Oreo. She's awesome. But she would be like, "Don't worry, because we've got this $1 million campaign. We've raised this money, and you don't need to respond because the campaign is going to have a message which is going to explain all that away." And I'm like, "Mayor, everything's changed. And first off, I don't know what people watch anymore, but if you don't respond to these little points that are nibbling at you, you're going to get eaten up. And I don't have any faith at all in our marketing campaign. Not that I didn't trust the people who are designing it. They're great. But, I mean, it's marketing. And people are suspicious. So, part of me was like, I got to engage with every form of media that I have at my disposal that Jordan Raynard and Tony DeSisto and others could teach me how to use. What social media do I need to know? I would ask my students, I teach a class at USF, what are you guys using? And when I had 3 or 4 of them say, we're using this, I'm like, oh gosh, I got to figure out how to use that, and then I would learn it and use it. Being able to engage in using the technology that's out there, that's important. I was answering to there's 1.2 million people who live in the county. Everybody was angry, and I was one of 7 commissioners. So, I had a huge jurisdiction, and I would try to respond. And I would get a lot of again, you idiot. Our power's been, or the water hasn't been working on our street for 3 weeks, and it's you. And I'm like, God, Eric, who? But we've got to figure this out. So I'm kind of going, wow, I only got a small area, to be an idiot. So I got a small area, and what we're going to do is, we're going to have formal meetings, which I've got one tomorrow, board meeting of our 4. We're going to have the executive committee meet, a board of 10, and we have Fifth Third Bank. They've joined, and they'll be on as a board member, and a couple others that are working their way towards board membership, and then general membership. General membership is anything from a student fee, which I think is like $35. I think an individual can get in at 50 or 100. Businesses, but we're taking the partnerships or the West Shore Alliances structure. But $500 to $1,000, you're a member, and general members will meet on a different day than when the board meets, and I'll be there and I'll be the filter. I'll take it all in. What do you all think? But saying to them, look, you have to understand it's me and Eric, and we have to prioritize. But if we do this right and we don't blow ourselves up, we have a tremendous opportunity with anchors that have resources that want to make a big difference. So we got to all work together. The key is going to be this: if we work together and we row in somewhat the same direction, that area will be different. And so I think, honestly, there are more of us that want to row together than want to tear it all apart. So I might, and maybe I'll be wrong, and I'll be a short-lived director of of the Tampa Bay Alliance.
Well, remember what we said about failure. So if that's the case, then you
I
just learn.
haven't been fired yet, though.
Sorry,
I took formal. I was 18th of November. I was full-time, and I'm still in my job. So I take that as a success.
It's been a whole month.
It's been a month. I look at football coaches. I think of this in terms of like football. I love. Now that's and
so we just at the end of the first game. So we played like 4 quarters so far. I love football too.
Oh, I love it. I love the game. I love the game. I played a lot of it. Maybe I don't look like it, but I played a lot. I got hit in the head an awful lot, which is probably why I'm the way I am. What?
Were you a corner?
No, I was a safety.
All right. I'm like.
I loved it. I loved that sport. I loved hitting. I liked seeing it come, but I also liked thinking and talking about what we're going to do to analyze the offense, and then when I get to play offense, what we're going to do to score. And I look at life the same way. So to me, there's a lot of similarities between sports and football and life. And when you're down and it looks like you're out, I'm always pulling for the team that's way behind. I mean, I'm the guy going, we're 4 touchdowns out, and there's only 5 minutes left, but we're going to come back. I'm believing. There are only a few times, a couple Bucks games and others where I'm like, all right, it's done, but usually I'm the last one going, I think we can still win this. And so I look at that university and think, we can win. We just got to pull in the same direction. I've watched teams that are far less capable than those they are playing win because they played together. They had a game plan they believed in, and the other team, they were all a bunch of showboats in it for themselves, and they lost. So we're going to be a team. We're going to go win for the coach.
Who's the coach?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to be the coach for right now.
All right. Okay. That's good. We actually talked a little bit about raising money, right? And it's going to take a lot of money to do what you want to do.
A lot.
How can the community that's interested in making that change, how's the best way for them to get involved?
Well, we are again actively seeking people to join the Alliance. We want businesses in the Alliance area, but we also want people that are outside who think they might want to be involved in the Alliance to join. And then we will have the opportunity to listen, and we're going to do some similar things to what I'm hearing from the channel side folks, where you'll have the opportunity to have an interactive engagement with us and tell us what you think, good and bad, and what we might be able to adopt. So we're going to do those type of things. Right now I'm on a listening tour. I'm doing all the talking, but really I'm going to be going out and meeting with, as I've been doing, all the stakeholders. And then really, here's the key though. Don't just talk to, I learned this, don't just talk to, like when I was in the military, if you want to know what's going on, don't talk to the admiral or the general, because he doesn't know. Go find the buck private, ask him or her, they know. And if you listen to them, you'll learn a lot. So I always learned, get to know the administrative assistants, get to know just the rank and file. And so I'm going and I'm meeting with all the CEOs and such, but I'm going to get to know the rank and file and say, all right, give me this true skinny. What's going on?
Well, it's about getting to the customer.
About a year.
It's about getting to the customer, though. So, understanding who the actual customer is on the end, and the more layers you have in between, right, the more filtered the message becomes. And it doesn't mean the CEO is a bad guy.
No.
It just means that he or she probably has no idea what's really going on at the field.
It's like when you go to Washington and you say, oh, they're all idiots. They're not all idiots. I was so intimidated when I got to Washington by how smart people were. I mean, the staffers, and you think, well, then the congressmen, they're idiots. Now, I've met a few, and I will be honest, I'm thinking back to one, like my glory days when I signed the contract with America. There were a few members of Congress that said some things, I'm like, oh my God, you're a member of Congress? But most of them, I was like, wow, you all are smart. You're dedicated. You don't, they get paid a lot. Living in DC, having to have a home wherever, flying back and forth, they don't get paid a lot. And it was like hard work, but I was impressed. What they don't do is work together. They're all in 17 different directions, and they're more interested in tearing the other person apart than seeing us achieve something successful. They want to embarrass the president more than they want to do what's good for the country, or vice versa. I hate that. And so for me, I looked at Washington where I thought that's where I ultimately want to be, and realized I don't want to be there. Because there are smart people, but I don't know if they know what they want to do. And they would rather cut their nose off to spite their face than to see us successful, but let the president or the speaker or someone get the credit. And I could care less about the credit. I mean, the credit means, Ecclesiastes, read it, if you haven't, read it. Because when you're gone, that name on the building, if someone doesn't pry it off and put another name on there, it fades. Or you walk past it and go, who's that guy? I don't know. Who cares? 100 years from now, no one's caring. So why are you so worried about getting the credit or your name going on the building or anything like that? Get stuff done. And if Washington worried about getting stuff done, this country would be much further ahead. But we're going to show in our little area that we're going to get stuff done. But we're also going to be, like you said, making sure we connect. Because if we're an island, like the island of USF and the island of Moffett and those islands where they were great inside but insular, they now want to look out. But we've got to be a place where we connect to downtown, we connect to West Shore.
Well, my opinion, and it might be an unpopular opinion with some people in this room, but a train would be a great thing, right? I mean, I think one of the challenges that area's had for a long time is the fact that it's difficult to get to. It's a pain in the butt to get up there. So if you had a way that you could connect, so people could go to school there, they could go work there, and be able to, get back and forth to downtown, that's a huge first step in changing the dynamic of that whole area. I personally think in this area, we've just got to get over the fact that, hey, we can't keep growing at the rate that we're growing and not have some alternate means of transportation. Nothing wrong with cars. I mean, you're a reformed politician, I'm a reformed race car driver, right? So I'm all for
I can see
cars,
you doing that.
right? I love cars, and I'm not going to get rid of my car, but I would also use a train.
Chase her down, she'd run over me.
But I also, use trains. Like if I go to a place where I actually have the opportunity to do that, because it's beneficial. If I can take a train somewhere, it's more efficient. I can get off, go to where I need to go. It's quicker. I can actually be productive while I'm on the train. It's not going to make people get rid of their cars. People in this country are not getting rid of cars for as long as anybody in this room's alive. It's a guarantee.
You have over 100 million people who visit our state, on top of the folks that live here. We're a tourism state, which means most people aren't going to bring their cars. Some do, but many fly in. Then they have to rent a car. Why on earth would a tourism state not have a quality, robust transit system to move people around who want to use it, so that those of us who want to drive can drive? To me, I can't fathom it. You cannot expect to attract people to come here and use our stuff and want to come back if when they get here, like when I got to go to Disney the first time and realized, oh man, and you have to stand in this long line? And how long do I have to stand here? And after a while, I was like, even as a kid, I don't know if I want to go back. So Disney figured it out. Express lines and all that other stuff, and entertainment while you're standing in the line. They figured out how to get around that. We have to figure out that we're a state where people visit. And so, and again, we got to, how can we move you about so that you can be separated from those of us who live here and separated from the trucking industry, which moves all the stuff from the ports through the country. If the governor and I am in complete agreement, we're going to deepen our ports and we're going to move our stuff. We're going to make our ports the destination for all these ships. Fabulous. But if you can't get the stuff off the ship and onto a truck and out fast, and it's going to get jammed up somewhere around Orlando, they're not going to do it. They're going to go, I'm going to go to Georgia, or I'm going to go to Alabama, or I'm going to go somewhere else and get my stuff in, or I'm going to just take it to Long Beach, whatever, and zip. So transportation is essential, and figuring out a way to separate trucks from people who live here, from the tourist, from the millennials, from the people over the age of 75 and 80, not to be insulting in any way, but myself, my eyes start to go. As we're going to live longer. Peter Thiel just said, I think Peter Thiel? He's going to live to be 120? Pretty sure it was Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
So he's going to live to be 120. That's great. I don't want him driving at 120.
Let's hope not.
That's
he can
fabulous.
afford a chauffeur, though.
I know, but not buying I had to take my mom's car keys. That was hard to do, but I had to say, Mom, I love you, but you're not driving a car. So, what's she going to do?
True.
Oh,
really? Okay, right, all right. Well, I don't know about that.
Thank you. Hopefully I'll be cogent enough to be able to still do it.
So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and then we're going to go to a little rapid fire piece, and we'll open up for Q&A. So I know you don't like to talk about taking the credit, but what do you want your legacy to be in Tampa? I'm going to ask the question anyway.
Change.
Yeah,
I was not. I want my legacy to be, we went from being comfortable with mediocre to being number one.
Okay, with that. So a couple of questions. If you had the ability to start your career all over again, right, what would you do different?
I did. I could have done a million different things, but I would do what I've done. I don't know if I would have done it the exact same way, because many times there are those moments where it's like, okay, I got no option but jump. Maybe if I'd thought more about it, I wouldn't have had to jump. I could have like crawled down or something like that, So I would probably not have jumped as many times.
Okay.
Because I got wounds, But
All right. So if you could talk to one person from history, and I know you're a big history buff, you only get to pick one, who would it be?
Lincoln.
Why?
Because I just think Lincoln was one of the wisest men. He had a humble sense of self, but my God, he had a spine made of steel and was able to hold the country together. So, I mean, there's a lot of people I'd like to talk to.
Right.
But if you said one,
okay.
Lincoln.
Cool. And so if you were me, and the chairs were reversed, and you were conducting the interview, what question would you ask you?
I guess I'd ask myself, what the hell do you hope to accomplish?
What the hell do you hope to accomplish?
Now that's a good question. Because I don't know.
Oh, okay, great.
That question scares me. Let me tell you, because there are days when I'm thinking, what I want to do? I'll tell you. I want to get a mountain bike, and I want to go just ride. Or I want to walk across America. I want to go 1,500 miles.
Like Forrest Gump.
What's that?
Like Forrest Gump.
I just want to go do it. I mean, there are moments when I'm like, I'm just going to go do something crazy and long distance and just try it out. Or I'm going to go run forever, I mean, so I like that type of stuff.
We could do a cross-country marathon, the Mark Sharpe cross-country marathon.
But I know me. I would be out there running, and I would be in the middle of the Sahara Desert somewhere and go, what in the hell am I doing? I'm in the middle of the Sahara Desert. What? I want to be back where the action is. And then I'm like, how do I, thumb back all the way to wherever to do something? So I'm smart enough to know, don't go walking into the middle of the Sierra, because I am going to go, holy shit, how did I get out here? And does anybody have any water?
Okay.
I'm thirsty.
All right, that's cool.
I didn't bring any water with me.
I can see that, actually.
Oh, I do. I do that often. I'm like, go. I tried to swim a lake one time. And I did. It was stupid. And I'm just telling you, I might not be here. A boater came by. I'm like, and he was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I thought I could swim the lake. I was much younger and stupid. And I learned that, sometimes
it's a long way. It doesn't look that far. It's a long way.
Yeah, it's a long lake. There's things down there,
Well, hopefully you could float, though, so then you, tread water for a little while.
No, in the ocean you can float. I mean, the lake, you just go down. I'm like, oh, this is not the ocean. I was born in the ocean. I realized as I was treading out there. So.
All right, so now I'm gonna go through the rapid fire part, which you've seen this a couple of times, like with Joey, right? But I have some different questions for you. So, First thing that pops in your head, right? What one word would you use to characterize yourself?
Tenacious.
What makes you happy?
Challenge.
What company or business do you admire the most?
Oh gosh, Apple.
If you could if you could be any animal, what would you choose?
Ooh, the owl.
Oh, interesting. Okay. What item do you own that you would never sell?
Nothing. I don't own anything that I would give away tomorrow.
What book has admired you or inspired you the most, or what's your favorite book?
Favorite book, I would have to say The Power Broker, Robert Caro.
Your favorite word?
Strong.
Least favorite word?
Weak.
What profession?
You can be weak.
Yeah, okay.
But quitting. Quit. I hate that word. Quit. I detest that word. What's that? Can't. I don't like that word. I also don't like the word anchovy. No, actually, I love anchovies.
What profession, other than yours, would you like to attempt?
I want to be an artist.
Wow, Mark Sharpe artwork. I don't know about that. Well, I think interesting. I'm like, maybe that'd be a way
I'm smart enough to know
that might be a way to raise money.
I would be a terrible, if I said tech, because I would be like, I've not even tried to turn the phone on, let alone program it. So I could never learn. So.
But you could maybe do artwork and sell that. That'd be a way to raise money for TIA.
I want, but I mean, my uncle was an artist. I mean, seriously, my uncle was an artist, and I grew up as a kid. He lived in Winter Haven, and he was a former special forces guy, massive. This guy was massive, but he was an artist, and he was crazier. I mean, that man, and he would talk about all these wild, just incoherent things that I just loved. I couldn't wait. My dad goes, "Oh God, don't go into that garage." But I loved it because I would just come out of there going, "Whoa, Dad," you know.
All right, so what's your most unusual skill?
Unusual skill?
Mm-hmm.
Unusual skill. Hard to think of any skill. But I would say, I can. I don't know. I mean, I can chisel ice off my windshield in freezing weather, and my hands just can keep doing it. They don't get cold. So I can do that.
Well, that's kind of different.
Unusual.
Okay.
That's unusual.
It's like, what profession would you never want to do?
I'll tell you, the profession that I realized would be very difficult, police officer. I thought I wanted to be a police officer until I did a ride-along. And all the people you got to deal with, 9/10 of them are
All the
drunk or
crazies?
high or something.
Yeah.
That's a tough job.
All right, last question. When you get to the pearly gates,
Oh,
right?
yes.
What would you want God to say when you arrive?
That I served him. I'll tell you that, I mean, there's not a day that's not to get into faith, but there's not a day that doesn't pass that I don't pray and thank God. I thank him for my existence. I thank him for that day. I'm blessed. And so I hope that I haven't let him down. So I'm just praying when I walk up, I go, I hope I didn't let you down.
Good answer. All right, give a big round of applause to Mark. And now's your chance to really give him hell. Matt.
Why did you skip the Marine Corps?
Why did I skip the Marine Corps? Because their office wasn't open. Seriously, I threatened my parents. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to join the Marines. They're like, no, don't join the Marines. I would have, honestly, if the Navy had said, sorry, we don't have what you want, and the Marines door had been open, I would have walked in, and if it worked out, I would have been a Marine. That's kind of how I operate. I would have just been, all right, you know.
Well,
I don't know if they would
my
have
dad
taken
was
me.
Marine. My ex was
respect
Marine. My
Marines.
brother's Marine. So I'm like,
Really?
you know, yeah.
Oh, I love the Marines.
I was big say ex-Marine, but there's
no such thing.
no such thing. Having lived at 275 in Fletcher area, what's your spitball idea of getting visitors past the blight towards USF? Because you got the problem going to Bush, you got the problem going to USF, you got the same problem going to the hospital. There's no way around it unless you gut it out.
Right.
What's your spitball idea there?
Well, I guess the first thing that I keep reminding people is that if you look at areas, Washington, Philadelphia, just name your major urban area which is a high which draws people in. They've got their blight. So, part of it is just recognizing that, this is our blight. And in fact, my goal is to, I'm hoping that we can see some change, but we're going to have to be honest that when you're coming in, there are going to be areas where, you might want to be a little bit careful. But at the same time, I am hoping we can engage in a dialogue with that community and find a way with the University Area Community Development Corporation and others to get them to embrace what we're trying to do.
But I went through the same thing in Houston, which is where I'm from, and today they have 10 lanes of concrete on both sides of the road going in and out, and everybody lives an hour and a half away from downtown.
Right.
Because they didn't clean up. I used to drive an ambulance in the Houston area, and they never cleaned up the downtown.
Read Happy City. I'm reading it now. The first chapter is about the mayor of Bogota and how he took the most dangerous area in the world and an area where literally the pedestrian deaths were just, the killings that were off the chart, but just pedestrian deaths. And they were able, through a lot of creative effort, to turn portions of Bogota around, and that guy's become a celebrity and now travels all over the world talking about what he's doing. There are streetscaping things that we can and will do to make those areas more amenable to pedestrian traffic. Fletcher is highly trafficked by pedestrians. and bicyclists because they have to. It's the only way they get around. They have cars. Fowler is going to be our challenge. It's 8 to 10 lanes. And the state is not going. They don't want us to slow it down. But we're going to figure out a way to make Fowler a safer and street where people can stop. Because when you're flying down there, it's hard to get to the businesses. And the businesses have all changed from what they used to be. And then Bush. Bush is its own unique animal. And we're going to have to work on that as well. But I think that there are things that we can do, and the state now is beginning to adopt the streetscaping that makes the streets more appealing, safer, and the community embraces it. But if your goal is just to keep widening the lanes, you destroy a community. That's the quickest way to destroy a community. So we've got to go find a way to do the opposite. That's why transit's important, because if you can have transit working and then the cars with the pedestrian and the bicycles, you actually have somewhat of a manageable venue for people to come and go. But, look, we're not going to change some of these areas overnight. And our goal is not to tell people who live here, our goal is to push you out. What I would like to say, though, is if you're there and you have no way of earning an income, or it's the best job opportunity you have is, a shoe store, we're going to find a way to get you into a business where, even without a college degree, you might be, if you're trained properly, doing a tech-related job of some sort where you can make more money. And I definitely think that's possible.
It's interesting, people's view of the tech industry, that you've got to somehow or another have a college degree or have a master's degree to be successful. And I will tell you that in my experience, the majority of the most talented, highly technical people I've ever met never finished college.
Yeah.
There's tons of other certifications that are out there for people to pursue that. There are developers who start writing code when they're, some are even before teenagers. But it's not a prerequisite. It's more about, do you have the right aptitude, and do you have the right training and the right mentoring to actually make it work?
That's why what I love about what you're involved, this startup effort, and what I'm seeing in schools, when I go and visit middle schools and high schools, kids that in the past were just bored, stiff, smart, but just didn't care about what they were learning. You give them a phone or a computer and tell them to break it down, or you start talking about coding, they get that. And I think that there's a way to reach kids that in the past we've lost, that weren't going to go into corporate America, but wouldn't mind starting their own business, who we can bring in, and they can be productive citizens that will help this country. So I see, and what I love, that's, to trail off on another, I'll do this to you, but I think the startup community, it's funny, Putin once, they were going to build this, an innovation district. I think I read about this in 2010, they were talking about this. I'm like, okay, really? You got to learn one thing. Innovation doesn't work in a police state or, where there's no freedom. And so if you want, that's fine. That's awesome that you want to do that. But to make it really, truly work, you're going to have to embrace something that right now you don't, which is the ability to handle criticism and to let people critique and think and challenge. And so why this works to our advantage in America is we still believe in the right to dissent and to speak and to be different. And we protect it. And that's I think our strength. And so we can go in some of these areas where it's been a challenge. And I think we're going to find a lot of people who they haven't fit in to what society said you had to do in order to be successful. And this gives us an opportunity.
Well, I think there's also too, and Matt's a great example of this, right? There's a lot of people, yeah. So there's a lot of people though who have made a decision they don't want to go work in a corporation, right? Maybe they're just going to be a freelancer, and that's normal in today's economy, particularly in the tech arena, right? It's I'm going to pick this. I'll get to pick and choose projects I want to do. Nobody cares what school you went to if you have the right skills, or if you went to a school. Right? It's do you have the ability to execute on this? And so I do think there's an opportunity there to kind of take some people who probably wouldn't have gone the traditional route. And I mean, they could easily earn 6-figure incomes, which they probably have no clue that they could actually do, if they're willing to do that. And they can kind of pick and choose the projects. And if they're happy, earning, $50,000 a year, they can most certainly do that.
Anybody who's willing to, sell drugs, which is dangerous as heck,
well, they're entrepreneurs. I would give you a big thing. Drug dealers are entrepreneurs.
So figure out a way to just channel that.
It's true.
They are. Well, I mean, many of them are. But I mean, But I can tell you, you know where it leads.
Yes.
You know, I would tell.
I'm not suggesting they should go do it.
No,
I'm just saying.
I mean, in many different ways. I mean, and so if we can find a way to reach the community though, and give them that opportunity, that's what I'm hoping we can do.
Cool.
Yes, Mark, my name is Luisa Bracamonte, and let me start with saying how impressed I am with you. I've been around the country, and I am originally from Peru, and I've been in different countries, and it's really amazing to find somebody like you in little Tampa Bay that has so much passion. And I believe that you need to be more candid about taking credit, because you have made a big difference in the community. There are people like me who follow you secretly, and we were wondering, what is this guy about? And now I realize that your passion has no comparison. When you say that you were up at night responding to tweets and Facebook updates to millions of people that perhaps were whining, complaining, etc., that takes dedication and says how much you care. Working as an instructor, as an educator, sometimes I find myself working until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning by responding or trying to help a student. Nobody pays me for that. Nobody pays me enough. But I care so much that I do it anyways. So it is something that you cannot buy anywhere. What you are made of is who you are. And on this endeavor that you're initiating, if somebody can make it happen, I think it's you. So have faith in yourself, reach out to the community, to people who believe in you, and you will succeed. With that saying, I have a couple of questions.
She's greased it really well.
Okay, my first question is, based on what you're saying, a typical scenario of how the alliance would work is that, for example, I have 30 million that I'd like to invest in that area, and I say I want to create, let's say, a luxury apartment complex, okay? Do you think that an investor like that can have some sort of match up from the government? So if in the event I don't appreciate the property, the investment, will I have some way to recover my investment?
Well, the government will invest in the university area like it's invested in other areas where it's basically well prepared to do those things. Infrastructure, road and such. There's going to be the risk that the entrepreneur takes, that the taxpayer is likely not going to be handed at least a significant part of that cost. I mean, there's talk now about the downtown investment and what they're trying to do. Some, the taxpayers are going to cover, the adjustments to Boreen and road and other things. But the risk that will come with a hotel or other things will be borne in large part by the risk taker. What we're going to try to do is provide a sense of stability and a roadmap that says, look, with your investment, we're prepared to make our investment, which will be, again, in road improvements, making sure that the infrastructure that is necessary is there. I'm even interested within the innovation district, which we haven't established the boundaries yet, seeing if we can't provide some form of incentive that the state would recognize, that local government would recognize, that would provide, maybe it's a waiver of fees, maybe it's a tax break of some sort, this traditional things, but also perhaps it's finding a way to, as part of the infrastructure, making sure that we've got the piping for data in and out, that the type of data companies that we're trying to bring in would say, well, that's attractive to us, but that's where we're we haven't gotten to that point at all, where we want to sit down and inventory what we've got, who we want to attract, what they're looking for, look at what we can do, what we can justify and explain, because whatever we do here, we have to be able to do everywhere else. But my hope is that just by, if nothing else as well, having that community organize and work together. They're going to, I had a group that came to me and they said, well, we want to have a new shuttle service in the South Howard area of Tampa. Would the government do it? And I'm like, no, the government's not going to do it. Hart doesn't have the money. Hart is not, but if you'll organize and you get the businesses together and you come up with a funding formula where you can take care of at least, half, perhaps you can sit down and have a conversation and then the government might join you. And so you'll have partnerships, but the government's going to look to the community, and that's what we've been saying to this area: organize.
Okay, sounds great. My other question is on the potential of an incubator. How do you really see the potential of an incubator in that area, having USF Connect monopolizing the area? I live in West Chase.
Right.
Okay. If I want to co-work, I have to go to St. Pete to take garage, or I have to come to downtown to wave, and I don't have parking.
Right.
Okay.
Problem.
And in other areas, obviously, but it's not really a suitable environment.
There's a new co-work in Ybor, which has parking right
In
on that.
Ybor, yeah. Well, that was recently opened, but it's a new one. Okay. But if I live in West Chase, I want to stay in that area. Okay, and I keep telling everybody in my community, we need to create a co-working space.
I think you do.
Okay, but now with this initiative, perhaps that location will be closer to me. Okay, and I want to see an incubator that offers co-working space for me and my community leaders as well, so we can go there. But we don't want to really be influenced by USF Connect. Okay.
Well, USF Connect's got its own mission, and if you agree to the terms, and you're at and you can enter in, and that's what you want to do, it's there. And I know the people that are there now and are trying to, they've made, I think, great strides in the last 8 years, but there's still work to do. But that's not my area. That's not my area of specialty. If there is a need for an incubator, and I think that there is, the one you're discussing, what I hope will happen is it will be done privately. And then if anything, we might be able to help find space. What I don't want to have happen is that we come in, whether it's, and I'm now kind of we the county, we the city, or we the university, and we set it up ourselves, because then that's what will happen. And so I think it would be better, and I've talked with the mall owners about this. I've talked with folks and said, hey, you know what? A great workspace, co-working space in the mall, that could be awesome. And maybe that will happen. But the mall owner reminds me every day, man, you know what drives his decision? Not a master plan, the market. So we got to keep in mind the market. And if the market calls for an incubator, I think it's awesome. But I don't know. That's where I got to talk to.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark.
Over here.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Two things. I really don't like the name because it doesn't represent what you're doing in the university area. And calling it TIA confuses it with the airport, because that immediately is what I think about. And I don't mean to be
unhappy.
Right. And I don't mean to be
$500, but yeah.
I don't mean to be critical, but my question is are you going to work towards an overlay district for?
Yes. To answer your first question, the name was chosen back, I think, in 2011, and that's how they're a 501c6, and so you would hear that the alliance partners of themselves have said. In fact, I had a meeting where they were kind of like, hey, let's change it, like right now, and I'm like, no, hold on, it's the name will whatever it becomes known as, because we do want to be able to be that place where you're at the airport and someone says, I need to get to, and it rolls off their tongue and we know exactly what they're talking about. The university area, Victor Chris wants innovation destination. People have different names. So what we're thinking is, let's not rush to get a new name or a new brand. Let's really work on scoring some successes. The successes will help determine what our brand is, and then the name will adjust. And so TIA may be the corporate name that will be at the very bottom of the letterhead. But I mean, yeah, a TIA also is like an initiative, and the initials for a heart attack. What is it? Yeah. Or is it stroke or heart attack? Stroke. Okay, so it's a stroke and it's an airport. Two strikes. And I've asked Joe. I said, Joe, because he's like the man. I'm like, Joe, if you don't like this, I'll change. And for you, I'll change it. And he's like, no, it's fine. He said, no, I don't remember.
Nobody's going to confuse that with my airport, dude.
For right now, but we do need to change it. So that will happen, but we're going to let it. Organically, we're going to kind of let that occur.
The overlay district. So you are going after the overlay district.
Yes, absolutely. That will be something that that's one of the reasons why Eric, if he hasn't already left, Eric is going to help us with that because we're going to be building the overlay districts. But that requires buy-in. That requires us to sit down now and get to know our community, because I've been involved in overlay districts. I remember in the town and country area where my first calls were people going, we hate this overlay district, you got to kill it. And so my objective is to make sure as we go in, that we go in with community support, but you got to have an overlay district.
Can you give me a 30-second sales pitch for why small businesses and students would want to be part of the TIA?
Because you're going to be part of what's happening. You want to be where the action is. I want to be where I think I want to be. And so I would want to join it because I see that place being the spot. And that's a lot of just smoke. But ultimately, that's what I love about this is I am not going to be able to finesse this one, and go, well, if I could just word it right and craft this marketing piece right, they'll join. I'm dealing with people, who are incredibly smart and vicious, and their brutal honesty, as I am sometimes. And I'm not, and because I tell you, even as a kid, when I would be like, they would be telling me this story, and I'm going, whatever it might be, I'm not buying it. And I'm not buying all the colorful pictures, and I would be thinking that at a young age, I knew how I was, I'm going, I'm just not buying this. And so, so hokey always got me fast. I would just walk out going, all that money and it's hoke. So this is going to be real. When it's real, you're going to want to be part of it. And then you're not going to care. Like me, I don't care. If I'm the guy making the coffee, and that's all I can do is be the coffee maker, but it's so powerful, I want to be part of it, I will be thrilled. I'll be like staying up all night going, Folgers or chock full of nuts, what should I get? I can't wait. And because I'm making the coffee and it's going to be great. That's what I want. So this is going to be that place where you just can't wait to get in.
I think once there's momentum, then people will join in. It's that initial part that's going to be the hard part.
Yeah.
Once there's some momentum going, then people will want
Well, I'll
to
tell you, when I took the job, there were days, when I started as a consultant, where I was driving in there going, holy jeez, this is going to be tough.
Mark's like, what?
And I'm driving out going, I don't know, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go and drink. And I would go get a six-pack of my favorite craft beer and not drink the whole six-pack. I would drink responsibly. But I would responsibly drink 2 or 3 and go, whoa, what is that IPA and what is that alcohol content? It's high. Then I would feel better. After about the 3rd craft beer, I'm like, all right, Joey Redner, thank you. I can do this. I can win. But it would wear off. That's why I run, because there's that, what do you get, that endorphins or whatever?
The runner's high, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I go out and I run, and Eric knows this, because I'll go running, and I'm like a mile, I don't run far, but I'll go like 7, 8 miles sometimes, and I'm like on mile 5, 6, and I'm like going, yeah, and I'm like calling people, and it must be awful to get a phone call, because, okay, here's what you need to do. And I'm trying to talk through the run, But it's like, that I'm like charged up. The hard part for me is, there are those days when you drive in and you're just going, oh man, is anyone going to believe this? This is going to be hard. And I will not leave any impact at all. No mark. I'm going to come and go, and there's going to be nothing. And that, but
just keep it about that thing change. So just keep that in your.
But I will just say I'm more impressed with, because now there's just so many things to do. This is what I tell you: when you're in a situation where it's hopeless, then don't think about it. When I've been in those hopeless situations where it's like, there's no way, we're going to beat this, or whatever it might be. So you pick little things. I'm getting through today. I'm going to collect, when I was running against Sam Gibbons, like, oh God, how am I going to beat Sam Gibbons? If I thought about that, I would have driven myself crazy. So what I thought about was, I got to get 35 signatures signed by registered voters. That's what I had to do back in '92 when I first started running. And I got to maybe raise $50 or something like that. I would set a mark that I could probably hit. And that became my objective. 35 signatures, $50. And I would just go there. And then I would say, okay, now I need this. And I would just keep going. And then I could hit those things. And then every once in a while I'd pull back and go, now remember, I'm trying to win this race, or I'm trying to do such and such. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this. It's like I've got a lot of things in my mind I know I got to do. And I'm looking at the big picture going, God, that will overwhelm me. So now I'm going to crawl back down to, and that's what I think is great about being an innovator. Because sometimes it's just like things like, oh, today I opened a bank account. Or we hired an attorney. Wow, awesome. I'd go home, I've checked those boxes. I've won. And you're thinking, that's awesome. Have 3 beers and celebrate. Then you wake up the next morning going, God, my head hurts. And sheesh, I got all this other stuff I got to do. Hell, I was happy last night. What happened? Oh, yeah. Come up with little things. So,
You should enjoy your thank you note for that too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow up what the gentleman was leading into, expound a little bit on it. It's really where the rubber hits the road, which is the small entrepreneur, the innovator. I'm living it and doing it. I've had failures, and I'm still challenged. But, I'm happy to say I recently signed a license agreement, big company.
Awesome.
But, as full disclosure, I'm on the other side of the bay, I'm on the western side in Pinellas. There's been a lot of incubators over there, a lot of startups, and they're not making it,
Right.
And you've got a lot of guys like me who have stuck their neck out, invested everything they own, and then some, gone into deep debt, to fulfill their passion, to strive after their passion, and to make what they feel is doable, because they believe in it. But you hit a lot of roadblocks, but the most obvious thing you hit on a little bit, transportation, everybody knows that, it's lacking. Solar energy, everybody knows that, it's lacking. Just some of the most obvious things are not even forthcoming. So how we're gonna, and that's on a grand scale, right, that everybody sees. How we're gonna help the little guy with his dreams and passions? I mean, I got lots of ideas. I got patents for clean water for third world countries that I want to get up and running. That perhaps the university can help me with. But there's a lot of ideas, and that's what innovation is all about.
And that's
that need to come to fruition.
But and we haven't even come close as an organization to figuring out how we piece that together. But what we do see is that those areas where there's great success, you do have the large companies and businesses that are, own, it seems like, big sections of the city and town, with lots of smart people running around, many of them deciding to quit tomorrow, because they're going to start their own company that does something that's in relationship. But there's just so much activity going on that you just can't help but hit. And if it doesn't hit with this, you're hitting with something else and you're moving. We don't have that here. So what we have is this, institutions would sit there, and you get there and then you just try to protect your job. We want to create that environment where the major anchors draw the large businesses, because we are trying to draw corporations and interests to come here who want to be near our talent. 45,000 students, who go to USF. I hire them. We have 2 that are interns in a heartbeat because they're so good. I mean, I'll tell you, I will go out and promote USF, just the students, because the quality, I think, is getting better. So companies are going to want to be, and that's why Bristol-Myers Squibb, when they said, why they picked Tampa, they said, well, we wanted to be on the leading edge of a community that we thought was going to make the turn. We wanted to be in a community where we could be the leader, they are, and we wanted to be near your talent. We asked them what's the most important word to them, millennials. A big old red-necked guy country boy from North Carolina said the most important thing is understanding the millennials and creating an environment where they want to be. Transit's very important, but we do want to create that place where small guys can find a way to belly up next to big guys and share an idea, pitch well, it's not happening, but that's what but I'm telling you, my message to these guys, because look, I want this job and I enjoy this job, but I'm like, every job I've ever taken, it's like, if I have to leave tomorrow, that's what got me through middle school, because I would tell these guys, you can't bully me, because buddy, you know what? I'm not going to be bullied in my classroom, and if today's the last day I teach class, so be it. I own this classroom. And what I want when we work this entrepreneurship thing, we've got to be able to say to the anchors, look, it's not happening, but if we want to be the draw you want, it's not going to be because we put innovation on a building or came up with a really cool, slick, marketing campaign. That won't work. It's going to have to be when you guys all say, wow, it's happening. And my challenge is going to be, I'm an ant in the world of giants. And we're not even, look at us on an org chart. I'm not sure where we are. So how am I going to advocate? I'm going to have to go in on these monthly meetings and try to advocate. Like, I'm going to have to push and try to get these guys to do certain things they might not want to do in this area and create this environment where it occurs. So you have a chance and you can go, you know what, before, I don't want to go in there, but I'd go here. And you're going, wow, man, I took my idea, and because we're talking to Busch Gardens and saying, why aren't we coming up with all those cool apps they get in Disney, like the wand, and then maybe they do have them at Busch now, where you can buy everything, and you order a Coke and they know exactly where you are. Well, we want to do a hack-a-thon at Busch Gardens where people can come in and show all their cool concepts to Busch for how and have Busch, and we'll ask them, maybe, you know what? A portion of what you contract out, you'll buy from what you hear here locally. And so, and that's what we're going to kind of try to work towards. We haven't got it all figured out. Like I said, but these are the type of things that they've said they want to do.
I can't believe you haven't figured it out in a month.
Well, we're going to hire you, and then you'll tell us.
Oh, okay. Other questions? Anybody else?
Awesome.
Well, hey, give a big round of applause to Mark. And if you had other questions, then feel free to come up and, give him a really hard time all on your own.
I was actually wondering about this.